My name's Kate Lynch, and we're going to be talking with Julie M. Green, who wrote the book Motherness. It is a memoir of generational autism, parenthood, and radical acceptance. Welcome to Atypical Kids, Mindful Parents. We are a neurodiversity affirming podcast for neurodivergent parents and parents raising neurodivergent kids who are seeking support, connection, and more joy in our lives. I interview parents and experts who share my mission to create a kinder, more inclusive future. You can look forward to grounding practices, relatable parenting stories, and groundbreaking strategies. One thing that I have noticed in this book is Julie's fantastic writing. It is very engaging, very easy to read. It moves from different perspectives and different timelines. I relate to a lot of the things she's talking about. I just want to read this tiny little bit. In 1984, while everyone was busy fawning over a dancer named Madonna, I mooned over another pop singer, Cyndi Lauper. Kooky yet beautiful as a porcelain doll, Cindy existed on the fringes where we like to exist, right? A mishmash of punk and pixie princess. Her vocals alternated between throaty and powerful one minute, chirpy and impish the next. If Cindy was so unusual, then so was I.
It wasn't as cool as I wanted it to be,
But it
this
was
is
fun.
well
I want to read from Coffee and Neurodiversity. Excited to hear about this book. I'm actually reading Radical Acceptance right now in an attempt to connect to neurodiverse parenting and potentially being neurodiverse myself. So, love her book's title. Yeah, I'm a Tara Brach fan, and she wrote Radical Acceptance. I think that might have been her
oh,
first
she's
book.
like
Yeah, I love that. All of her books. Radical Compassion is one of my favorites.
crazy that it's radical.
Yeah, that acceptance could
The idea of
be radical.
acceptance is radical.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
We know you're Canadian, but don't apologize.
Okay, I'm here.
And I think it's important to model self-acceptance, right? Things are going to be messy. Things are not always going to be the way we wish them to be.
Thank you.
So I love that we are here together live and that we can radically accept however messy it gets. Tell us the thing you've been telling on all your interviews about your book, and we'll go from there.
You know what? It's been refreshingly not like that. I'd expect that I was going to have to regurgitate the same information over and over again and get sick of hearing my own voice. And surprisingly, everybody has a different take. Some are more parenting centric, some have been more writing centric, which is also really interesting because I seldom get asked about the craft. And some are more to do with the late diagnosis, discovery, and that journey. So it's actually not been very samey every time. It's sort of fresh because people read with different eyes and all the different experiences that they have coming into it. So they're interested in different situations. The elevator pitch for the book is essentially that my son was diagnosed when he was 3 around 2012. I knew nothing at all about autism other than like a lot of people, Rain Man. It took me close to 10 years before I learned more about what autism could look in girls and women. And there's just the big gulf between the
Yeah.
way my son presented and the way I presented. And yet there was also so much overlap. I did have this niggling feeling like, could I? There was this understanding that I had this sort of extra level of sixth sense of some of what he was experiencing. And I finally went ahead with it. And that was the impetus for the book because I was like, how can this boy presenting like this be autistic? And how can we even call these the same thing? That's a
Mm.
big question that people are still asking today. A lot of people are very much pushing for like, this should not be under the same umbrella because it's just so vastly wildly different to compare a woman in her 40s and how that presents after a lifetime of masking and coping mechanisms and just so different from a young boy.
But that young boy
Mhm.
grows up and
He's also
probably
very
learn.
different. He's now 17. So that was the impetus for the book as well, because once I did get the formal diagnosis, it was like, wow, You sort of expect it, but you also don't expect it. You do this whole process of looking back, and every now and then you'll get struck by, "Oh, that's what happened," and, "Oh, that's why I said that," or
Mm.
"That's what happened with that relationship or that situation." So it was that process of looking in the rearview mirror,
It's
and
reflective.
and like you said, the book alternates between flashbacks of my childhood, young adulthood, in tandem with what it was like parenting my son from pregnancy to age 13. Your listeners, unfortunately, will relate to lots of hard things, funny things, loads of
Yeah.
advocating and just figuring things out, finding our way.
There were 2 scenes especially that I really
Curious if you can do it in such a way that isn't a total spoiler.
I think so. The scene at the beach, the sensory issues around sand was extremely
Okay.
relatable, and then your reaction to it, I could relate to as well. And the scene that was so heartbreaking when you moved to a new neighborhood and it was so idyllic and all the children are playing. I don't know how much you wanna say about that, but I'll leave that to you.
Yeah, I don't wanna spoil it for people, but
Okay.
what I've heard from people who've read it is obviously, like, the particulars are different, but the emotions of what we go through as parents, there's a lot of universal there. That's kind of also why I wrote it, because there were definitely certain elements,
Yeah.
especially in my journey and your journey, because our kids are a little bit older, where I felt so isolated. I didn't have a community or tribe. At least today, you do feel like there are people
You
out there
can
who
find.
you can find it. It's a
Yeah.
little bit more readily available if you want it. But at the time, I just felt so alone, so confused, so isolated. I wrote the book that I wish I'd had. I wish I'd seen
Mhm.
other people going through this. I eventually did when my son was a little bit older, I did connect with a couple of families and we would get together. It was amazing because there was no explanation, no judgment. Three boys all landing in
Mhm.
different constellations of the spectrum. If someone had a meltdown or had to leave or did something weird, there was no judgment. That was amazing, but it took a while to get that. And even within that, not
Mhm.
everyone in the autism community has kids who are aggressive. The judgment you get when there are behaviors, just an extra layer that I felt wasn't really talked about enough.
Yeah.
So I thought if I'm doing this, I'm not going to just make it sweet and savory with a bow tie. I'm going to be really honest because, I'm autistic. That's what I do. I'm going to tell the truth and talk
Yeah.
about the stuff that I certainly am not reading everywhere. And I don't remember people talking about it then. I remember meeting one woman who had an older son, and I was just stunned like, what? You guys are dealing with aggression too? People are probably dealing with it. No one's talking about it. I'd never even met anybody who had gone through anything, let
Yeah.
alone to get advice, but just even to connect with another parent because it's so isolating and shameful that you end up kind of hiding away.
Last week, I was interviewing journalist and parent of an autistic and ADHD kid. We were talking about Dr. Becky practicing. One of them is
Mhm.
containment, which is like when your kid has a meltdown and they're flailing, actually holding them and moving them to another room. This is one of
Mhm.
the practices that has never worked for me. Many parents of neurodivergent kids have been like, why can't I do this? What's wrong with me? It's not working. I was asking, what about containment? And she was like, we don't need that. My son doesn't present that way. And I was just like, oh, yeah. So things like aggression have been harder to talk about. And how do you talk about it without throwing your kid under the bus, so to speak?
Yeah.
And I feel like you've done
Yeah.
that. There's respect.
Well, it's harder too because there's so much judgment. I think it's
Mhm.
very hard for onlookers and people to feel empathetic when someone's lashing out and spitting or
Yeah.
kicking versus if they're banging their head or they're practicing self-injury, then
Or they're
like I think
crying.
we or
They're
they're crying
sad.
or they're shutting down and it's something
Yeah.
more internal. But
Right.
if we look at someone, like you say, it's all variations of the same thing. It's a dysregulation, but it can be hard even as a parent sometimes. Your impulse is not to like, oh, my poor child, when your child
Like,
is
stop.
lashing out at you. So
Yeah.
it's a tough thing
Mhm.
and definitely to have the judgment from people. So that's also why it was important for me to write about. I thought The odds are probably slim that people who have no connection to autism will read this book, but I'm hoping people do pick it up and walk in those shoes and gain a little bit more insight and understanding because we still see a lot of this judgment of behaviors in school.
Yeah.
It's still treated like a disciplinary problem. And why are the parents assume that we're not doing something right and come pick up your kid
Yeah.
or we're restraining your kid?
The loneliness that can come from that.
Yeah.
My son was mostly aggressive toward me. There were times when he was aggressive toward other kids. The feeling I got when reading parts of your book was the loneliness that you felt as a child returned, and you
Mhm.
were looking to repair it in a way. Maybe I'm projecting because that's what I felt. The loneliness that I felt as a child of being weird. We also moved a lot, so I was never really accepted and I never really fit in, and I was definitely weird. I was hoping to heal through my child. It's an unconscious reparenting ourselves through raising our kids, and that just really blew up in my face, like, didn't go well at all, and I didn't really realize at first why I felt so uncomfortable, like, why was it so triggering for me? And I think it was that profound loneliness that I felt growing up coming back and just not wanting that for him too.
Yeah. It's weird how we revisit
Mm,
that through our kids, and it's as though it's happening to us. I still have some of this. If something happens and my son is rejected, it's like all over again. You feel as though it does echo. That's what people ask me too, like to write a book so personal. There is healing in that as well, right? My purpose was to just process things myself because that's how I process through writing. It was hard to write some of the scenes from my past and it was hard to write some of the scenes of the early days of parenting, but it was all,
yeah,
I think, a really cathartic process. And then eventually you think, well, this is why people write memoir. It's difficult and it's very raw. And it's daunting to put all this personal information out there in the
yeah,
world. But then you realize a lot of people are tapping into this because there's a shared humanity about it. And that makes it worth it. I had to get over that discomfort of being seen and having people know things about our lives. Trust me, a lot of stuff I left out. It was a very curated thing. It was a very selective process, but also part of it too. I want to create a more balanced narrative. I'm tired of this autism is a tragedy. It's like the cross that parents bear, and it's always just awful. I wanted to balance that narrative and make it a little bit more complex. And it's also not like, "Oh, it's your
superpower.
whatever superpower."
Yeah,
If I hear that, I bristle every time. We're complex. The truth is all over the board. Some days are really hard. Some days are, even within a day, like you can be laughing and carrying on. I consciously added a lot of humor because there's always funny stuff. People are surprised too when they pick up the book. My editor famously said, I laughed so much and I'm dead inside. So you made me laugh because I didn't want to
yeah,
doom and gloom. I didn't want to
right,
perpetuate that because our lives are not like that. They're very complicated.
absolutely.
It's still, that was part of my conscious attempt as well to balance. I don't know how well I balanced it, but there is a lot of
So many
funny moments in it.
Yeah,
Oh,
I have so
sorry.
many
Yeah,
questions,
go
but I
ahead.
also wanna read this from Russell.
Oh, hi,
I'm
Russell.
currently reading and really enjoying it. Feel the
Oh, thank you.
emotions. Not a parent, but I see parts of me in both Julie and Carson.
Yeah.
And Coffee and Neurodiversity says the shame and isolation from behavioral
Mhm.
challenges is so real.
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to read one more while we're here.
Go for it.
Russell says, at 57, I send hugs to my childhood self as
Mhm.
not knowing why things were so weird, was so confusing. Yeah, me too. At
Yeah.
56. So,
Well, and that's the thing too, people, like, there's no, people are like, "Why would you what do you care about knowing this about yourself at this age?" "You're a middle-aged woman." I'm like, "It doesn't matter." I've had people come to me, the woman in her 70s wrote me, and, like, the light bulb was going off. I don't think there's a timeline on knowing yourself and accepting yourself. It doesn't inconvenience anyone else for you to practice self-compassion and to have that understanding of yourself. I don't know why. A lot of people, for some reason, feel threatened by the fact that other people get labels or get a diagnosis late in life. And I personally don't get it because
Yeah.
it's a very personal undertaking. If it can help someone enormously change their self esteem, their mental health, having that piece of understanding, then
Yeah, and
what's the
I'm
harm in that?
all for it. Honestly, it destigmatizes autism when people talk about their autism.
The thing I know it's controversial. I know a lot of people want to break it into different categories the way we used to
Mm,
have it in different categories, but I think there are these fundamental similarities.
yeah.
That is the reason it can look really hard to reconcile a level 1, level 3, whatever you want to call it. Like my son was
Mhm,
never given a level because at the
mhm.
time
Mine
they were like, you know what? It's not to say there's this hierarchy of needs, it's just they're different needs. When I was younger, a lot of the needs were towards mental health. Like someone else might have needed more focused concentration on speech and communication. My son was speaking, so he did have a little bit of speech therapy, but it was more, he was doing different things with his pronouns. His core areas of need were regulation and mental
yeah,
health. How do we say, well, this is more important than that? They're just completely different needs. If someone's suicidal or they're self harming or they're aggressive. They're also still serious needs. They're just different needs. So I
absolutely.
don't think should be this kind of hierarchy, oh, you're level 1 or your needs are more mild or whatever. It's just completely scattered. It's a constellation
Mhm,
and it varies. My son's needs now at 17 are not what they were when he was 7. Sure, it's the
right.
same with ocean, right? Does he
It
still have
is.
needs? Yeah, they're constantly evolving. The dial keeps moving. We go through different phases where we need more or less. A lot of women come to this because in perimenopause, it just blows up. It's like a second
Mhm.
adolescence. You can find that you were fine before, but all of a sudden, like, what the heck? Why am I really struggling with mental health issues? And the sensory issues have really ramped up and burnout, it has merit. I think it's allowed to exist in its own right, and no one is putting this in a pecking order. They are different needs that still deserve support and still deserve accommodation. I'm on my
Absolutely.
soapbox.
And nobody would have known how my son would mature and evolve when they met him at 2 or 3.
Of all
Like,
us, right? I want to say maybe about 2 years ago, 2, 3 years ago, we were in a really hard place.
well, that makes me feel better because Ocean is
Oh,
14 and
yeah.
we're in a hard place right now.
Yeah, I'm not saying I have all the answers. My opinion is a lot is just developmental as well. Sometimes
Mhm.
the nervous system, there are certain things that just developmentally settle. It goes in these waves and you have
Correct.
harder patches. And then suddenly you see some growth. And I think some of that is physiological for all the supports that we want to give. Some of it sometimes just takes time and actual physiological
And
development.
exactly, and I've noticed that at every stage. I'll try and force something, and then it won't work out. Even with potty training, it was
Mm.
really tough at certain points. We would get to everything but nighttime, and then, trying to force the nighttime. I don't know why I'm talking about potty training, but it's such a good example. Trying to force the
Yeah.
nighttime when he physiologically wasn't ready made it like a nightmare. He already had so many sleep issues. I have sleep issues. I have a hard time getting back to sleep once I'm activated. Would be changing his bedding several times a night. Finally, I'm just like, okay, I feel like a terrible mom. I put the overnight pull-ups back on and waited, and we got sleep. I felt so much shame around it, but honestly, he didn't leave elementary school in pull-ups. His body caught up, his physiology caught up. My kid, he has delays, and certain things are very splintered and spiky profile. Always been really good at certain things, memorization and stuff. We know this. I don't need to rehash it, but patience can be the hardest thing. And as a parent of a young child, to say, how can you and I relate to each other? You're like this, and my child is like this. We don't know what our children are going to blossom into. All we can do is be with them in the present moment. and scaffold what their needs are in the present moment.
Felt that so much was on my shoulders if I just do it all as a parent, but it's so much pressure and really taxing. I think my son internalized a lot of that feeling that people were, whether therapists or parents, you're always like working on your child rather than I do
Yeah.
wish I had just sort of enjoyed him more in the moment, knowing and trusting that yes, we can support and we can scaffold, but just enjoying and being
Yeah.
connected with him. I feel like sometimes I was just so driven to s- push these things along and help him make these gains because that's really what was driven home to me. Like, early intervention, you got to do
Mm.
all the things, hurry, hurry, hurry. There was a little video my husband had taken once, and I was playing something imaginative with my son, and it broke my heart. Like, what should have been a nice moment. And initially it was, but I could see I was working with him. I was trying to steer him. It really made me sad.
Yeah.
There's a time and place. And yes, we obviously want to help our kids be the best they can be. But I felt at times I was so under that pressure, determined to have the best outcome for him, that I lost sight of just enjoying him as much as possible. A little boy then is gone before you know it. Now, I think with the benefit of hindsight, I think I've relaxed a lot. The evolution with him has made me chill out and just enjoy him. And obviously, like things change, there are always things he's grappling with, but I'm trying to now be more like, I guess, more like a cheerleader, role model, mentor position. I also very much let him in on the things that are like I'm spiky as well. Like you
Mhm.
said, the spiky profile, there are things that are effortless. And it's interesting because sometimes we have these commonalities. We both have the pattern spotting and we're amazingly on the same wavelength in some ways. I'm very honest. I fess up when there are hard things and we butt heads sometimes because we both are very tied to ritual and routine and need things a certain way. So sometimes our profiles kind of run into each other and clash a little bit. But I'm very upfront with him about my own
Mhm.
challenges. I don't think it helps to pretend that parents have it all figured out.
Yeah. That helps model a
Um,
growth mindset for sure. So I want to wind us up, but I love asking this question. You could share something that's not in the book if you prefer, or some vignette from the book, but parenting memory that brings you joy.
you know what? I love all the little things. I remember actually the last time we talked, I talked about David Bowie duet with my son.
Yes.
A lot of our fun things, little everyday things, like just spontaneously, like even last night, I think he was about to study for a test. And he said something, and we both started singing this 1960s song that we heard, the one about the birds and the bees. We thought it was very funny, the flowers and the trees. And we started singing together and dancing, not square dancing, arm in arm
Yeehaw!
and kind of dancing around. Yeah, yeehaw. To me, those are the most fun. It's no, like, grand occasion, like, vacation or some really orchestrated party or whatever. To me, those things, to be honest, we both have so much anxiety, he and I, that it's
Mm,
usually a bust. But it's the small day-to-day moments that are just
yeah.
really fun, and we're both laughing, and we're connected, and it's just cool. And then 5 minutes later, it's over, and, like, he's studying and back into teenage land. So those are the little
Love that.
spontaneous glimmers.
Yeah, I love that. There is so much pressure when, as also a anxious person, like the pressure of the big events can kind of kill the joy. Not that I haven't had joyful moments during vacations and holidays, I
Yeah.
have, but yeah, I love that. Like cooking together is something that we
Mhm.
do, and we just
Nice.
end up in the kitchen together. He's making himself a steak, and I'm making my vegan husband something. Other than read the book, is there anything you'd like to leave parents with today that want them to know?
Oh, I think it's just not getting bogged down in the fear and the worry in the moment. It's easy for me to say, but I'm trying to loosen my grip on that because none of us has a crystal ball. I couldn't imagine things would be half as hard or half as fun or all over the place years ago. It's just we don't know where things are gonna land. I think the of most importance is to take the pressure off yourself as a parent, have self-compassion, and enjoy your kids, connect with them no matter what age. There's a lot of talk about teenagers, but my son and I really laugh a lot now. He's towering over me with a big, deep voice, but we have a different kind of bond and rapport now, which is really cool. So I think that honestly is the most important thing, and the self-compassion piece,
Mhm.
like about so well.
Thank you. When we have self-compassion and self-acceptance, give ourselves grace, it opens up the opportunity for the joy, like those spontaneous moments of shared appreciation and shared joy. I'm gonna show your book again, Motherness. Please read this book, A Memoir of Generational Autism, Parenthood, and Radical Acceptance. I'll make sure that any links you want to have
Cool.
available are there. Let us know if you're reading the book or if you're gonna get the book, any moments of joy that you've experienced lately or any struggles you'd like to share with us. Just put them in the comments. We really love hearing from you.
I've heard from a lot of people, some who aren't
Mhm.
parents, some who are parents at various ages, and I love getting that feedback because you feel like you're writing into the void sometimes. So it is nice
Yeah.
to hear from real people. I'm on Substack as well. I'm the autistic mom. Maybe people already follow me there, but they can come find me and send me a message or a comment.
Yeah, your byline will be there as well, and we'll make it very easy for people to connect. Anything else? KV is definitely going to get the book. That is fantastic. I want to just say I usually listen to audiobooks, but the cover feels really tactile in a good, it's like a waxy,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, it's a really nice feeling cover. I'm very like tactile. So I recommend the print book. All right. Thank you,
Great.
Julie. Great to see you.
Thank you so much. Always great to chat with you, Kate.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone. Thank you for joining Atypical Kids Mindful Parents. I really appreciate you walking alongside me